And we are live. I am Cole Clayton, and I have with me Atlas Novak, and this is Last Minute History. How you doing, Atlas?
I'm pretty good. I'm eating a banh mi sandwich, which is not Japanese, but my wife made it for me, and it's delicious. But
What is it? What is banh mi?
so it's like a like Thai dish,
Okay.
but it's got pork, onion, carrot, avocado. You guys should do it on hammered and cheese.
I'm interested. I was a sous chef for a Thai restaurant for like 2 years, and I've never even heard of it.
What kind of stuff did you make?
A lot of curry and a lot of like pad Thai,
Mm-hmm.
uh, fried rice, stuff like that. Noodles.
That's good.
Yeah. It was pretty simple. My job was very simple. It was mostly just like cutting vegetables and telling people to stay doing their work. It was like just light management, really.
That kind of just sounds like being like a cook, doesn't it? Like, okay, make sure you have everything ready, and then
that's essentially what it was. Like, for whatever reason, like when I say, "Oh, I was a sous chef," it brings like this whole mystique and like prestige, but really, I was just assistant manager. Like,
hey, what are you gonna do?
yeah.
So today on Last Minute History, we're not doing what the show started as, which is going in chronological order. Fuck that. We're doing samurai weapons this week because that's what I wanted to do.
We felt like it was probably cooler and more fun to spice it up and maybe do more like a specialty, tinier, specific.
Yeah, like I think smaller topics, more particular things also fulfills that niche that things like Lions Led by Donkeys and Behind the Bastards doesn't cover, which is just like the little stuff in between, the last minute stuff, if you will. What this also means is that we'll cover pretty much anytime, any place. If you got a suggestion, whether it be a super small event or like something about a particular group of people, like this week we're doing samurai weapons in particular. Now, because of that, I will be bringing up things like the Sengoku Jidai and the Meiji Restoration on the opposite ends of what's going on.
Hell yeah.
But if you want to learn more about those things, I highly recommend checking out Extra History series on both of those things. They have series on both the Sengoku Jidai, which is like the time you think of when you think of samurai, which lasted from before Columbus landed in the Americas, so in 1467, and it ends with Tokugawa Ieyasu taking over Japan about 100 years later. So, like, this is Japan's version of Avatar: The Last Airbender. 100 years passed, and my brother and I discovered the new shogun, a guy named Tokugawa. That basically. So that, and then the Meiji Restoration was the end of the samurai, which happened in the 19th century. Now, in the 19th century, in 1867 is when the Meiji Restoration is said to have started. Fax machines existed, which means technically a samurai could have sent a fax to someone.
So now a fax machine, that's where you document truthful pieces of information and send it over to people. Fax.
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of like a telegram.
You didn't get it.
No, I didn't.
Fax.
Oh, fax.
Writing facts down and sending them to people.
God damn it. I hate you so much. So I guess we should start with like early samurai weaponry. So if you could bring up one of the like
Gotcha.
Yeah. So samurai to start with were mercenaries. In early Japan. Oh, another video that you can watch if you want to get more information about this. The history of Japan from, I think it's Bill Wirtz is the guy's name.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
The guy who kind of sings, or he's like, "It's the Cambrian explosion." That guy. So he covers all this real fast.
Most of my Japanese culture that I have is anime. If I'm
I
honest,
fucking knew it was anime. God
it's like, and it's not even like recent anime. It's like the early 2000s anime and like late 90s, like Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. You know what I mean? Like the earliest Asian invasion anime. Like,
yeah, not even like My Hero Academia or
no.
Hunter x Hunter. None of those.
Once I got to teenage years, I was like, y'all are weird. People are like watching Bleach and Naruto and all that. I'm like, dude, like, come on, let's talk about girls or something.
So one thing to know about Japan as a island, as a area, is that it doesn't have a lot of resources when it comes to iron.
Really?
This is one of the reasons why Japan behaved the way it did in World War II, where it started conquering all the areas around it, because it needed iron and it needed rubber. So because
didn't they bomb America over oil too, like, I guess or Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, so
it was an oil issue.
Well, yeah, they needed oil. The idea was to take over areas in the Philippines, but the U.S. had influence in the Philippines.
Right.
So the idea was to knock the U.S. out of the war by bombing Pearl Harbor, but they didn't really know our capacity for manufacturing at that point.
Crazy.
So yeah, that's neither here nor there.
So I didn't know that they fucking I didn't know that they bombed us because of lack of information. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Not information, like you mean like lack of information of how? It's not so much that we were good at it and we just didn't tell anybody. It was just underestimating your enemy. Like,
right.
if we take out
at that time, was it known at all by anyone how good at manufacturing we were?
Yeah, because we did we did it in World War I too.
Right. Okay.
We manufactured a lot. We got really rich off of
war.
Off of war. Yeah. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, right. Anyway, back to the topic.
Anyway, I bring all that up to say that Japan's iron was not all that plentiful, so it's because of that it gave rise to the katana, which is the folded steel. So you have sword nerds, and yes, these are a thing. Let's see, is the katana anywhere in here?
You know, I don't see it. Let's see whatever one we got here.
Keep going. Any others? Okay, this one in the middle.
It's just a Japanese sword. This is a picture,
so,
but katana.
Yeah, so it's folded steel. So compared to like European iron workers, their swords were just of better quality because of the resources that they had. So they were Japanese smiths were making the best of what they could do with the resources that they had, but it also meant that it gave rise to this culture of putting all that you had into your sword.
Right.
One of the things that samurai would do to test their sword was, let me see if I can find the name of the action. This comes from sabersmith.com because of course there's a website with that name. So there is a quote. There is a darker part of the samurai sword's history. For instance, one of the ways a warrior could test their blade would be by randomly beheading a total stranger passing them on the road. This was called sujigiri, or cutting down at the crossroads. So you put all this time and effort into making sure your sword is like yours and making it this extension of yourself, and you're like, I need to test this out.
It's kind of like similar to pirates and their ships and their boats and whatnot, right?
Kind of, yeah. You have this, like, it becomes an extension of yourself. It's like anybody who's played D&D, any role-playing games, it's like I put all this time and effort into my character. Or if anybody has played a trading card game, your Yu-Gi-Oh, your Magic, like the time taken, deck building, testing, and then taking it to a tournament. Except when we go to tournaments, we don't cut people's heads off.
Not if you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Jesus. And you're wondering, why is this allowed? And it's because the Sengoku period, the 100-year period, was basically all the samurai clans fighting each other at the same time.
Right. Okay. When
At
was that exactly? Like,
1467 to 1567, or
okay.
1568, about a 100-year period.
Okay.
And if
So
you're wondering,
in Europe, we're having like maybe the Black Plague a little bit.
Black Plague has already happened by that point.
Has it? Okay.
The Ottoman Empire is on top of the goddamn world at that
Okay.
point.
Gotcha. And then shortly after this, we're probably what, a couple decades. Christopher Columbus
Yeah.
to
So,
America. Gotcha. Okay.
well, the reason that you have the Age of Exploration starting near the beginning of the Sengoku period is the Ottoman Empire controls all trade in and out of Asia, China
Mhm.
mostly for the Silk Road. So you have European countries going, we need to get money so we can pay off the Ottomans to get the fancy clothes and all the other cool stuff. We got to go somewhere else. So the Ottoman Empire is like indirectly responsible for Columbus genociding a bunch of people, but also where we get turkeys,
Really?
potatoes,
You
a
know, I
hammock.
didn't hear much about the Ottoman Empire growing up in school. Now, is that just a failure of Texas education, or is that just something we don't talk about as much?
Both. It's just kind of like it's not really related to America as a country.
Right.
They don't really interact with us much after we exist. They're on their downward spiral, going from when we start existing to World War One, which is when
Right.
they're
I knew they were
officially
a part of
dissolved.
World War One, kind of.
Well, they're on
Um,
the opposite side of us from World War One. That's another reason why.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I didn't
Um,
know they were that. I didn't know that they had been around that long. That's a long ass time.
the
In
Ottoman Empire
an
lasted a long ass
important
time.
century, really. Like
Well, because the Ottoman Empire, how long did this thing last? It was 14th to the 20th century. So from the 1300s. So that means that when the Sengoku period starts, they're on their like glow up period. They're on the rise.
they're fucking everybody up, and they're a
Pretty
problem.
much, yeah. So meanwhile, over in Japan, the Onin War is what kicks this thing off in 1467. Now, samurais were mercenaries, and as we know from the Bronze Age collapse, what do we know about mercenaries?
They all go out to lunch.
What's the one lesson to take from hiring mercenaries?
They get really pissed off if you don't pay them.
Always pay your mercenaries. Yeah. So samurai were originally kind of like bodyguards you could hire to to keep you from uh, getting robbed while you're traveling as a merchant.
Right.
Um, and then over time they get more and more power. I'm glossing over a lot of stuff, sorry, but um, over time they get all this power to the point where you have the emperor of Japan, but at this point he's a figurehead.
Right.
And that continues all the way up to the Meiji Restoration in the 1800s. So for about 400 years, you have the shogun, which is directly below the emperor, the head samurai, is the top dog, even though he's not the top dog. He's the Dick Cheney of it all.
So wait, so the chain of command, or whatever the fuck you call it, the patriarchy, whatever the fuck you want
The
to call it,
patriarchy.
whatever is
Yeah.
going on in Japan, it was dictated by by the best warrior or best samurai, or was there like an empire king, emperor or king or whatever? Like, what's going on there?
You had okay, so the full like pyramid here. So you have the emperor was the official ruler of Japan. He had limited power and was more of a figurehead until the Meiji Restoration. So the emperor was considered the highest authority in the land, but his role was largely ceremonial. So it's kind of like the king now in the UK.
Or if you just own an island, like,
What?
how the fuck are people? How the audacity to call yourself an emperor, and all you do is own an island? You can't even fight China.
Well, they look well because they saw him as like divine. For a long time, royalty was seen as god like, appointed by God, depending on the country you're in.
And that was kind of that's always kind of a big deal in Asian culture. Because even if you look at it
not
more,
just not just Asian, like European, the divine right of kings was a thing in like people like King Henry VIII, and that's
I guess,
why.
like in Europe, you had more people overthrowing kings more often. I
Yes,
feel like, but in Asian cultures that doesn't happen. Even still, with like North Korea, we still have the leader treated as a god. You know what I mean? Like that. It seems to run pretty deep in that culture.
a little bit. I think with North Korea at the least, it's funnier because there's social media
Right.
and we can make fun of them outside of the
Well, yeah,
country.
they're not allowed to use it though, right? Or do they
Yeah.
have some kind
Well,
of fucking North
they
Korean Facebook or whatever?
pretty much they have like their own censored version of same thing with China. They got their own thing going on. So anyway, emperors on top. The shogun was the military dictator of Japan and the de facto ruler. So he was responsible for governing the country and making the important decisions.
Explains that show I haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Now, if you're wondering why isn't the shogun or the emperor or whoever's involved running into any of these people outside of their country? Why are we not trading? Or why isn't Japan trading with other?
Isolation. I remember this.
Yeah. So Japan was isolated for after the Sengoku period, they were isolated until about the Meiji Restoration, when the US showed up with Matthew Perry and his gunships being like, fucking trade with
No,
us
it's
or we will blow
Tom
you up.
Cruise.
What?
It's Tom Cruise.
It's Tom Cruise.
Matthew
Okay.
Matthew Perry was doing it at that time.
If you bring up The Last Samurai again, I will fly to Cleveland and punch you in the face.
My bad. I didn't know it was
that movie is like really not accurate at all.
It's not good either, so I don't know why everybody likes it so much. I watched it. It's not good.
Yeah. So anyway, the only trading that Japan did with outside countries, and it was only at one port, were the Portuguese and the Dutch, and that was it.
Why did Americans? Why did it? Because it happened shortly after the Civil War, I believe, if I'm correct.
Before
Was it before the Civil War? So why were they so open to Americans? Because for one, we're on the other side of the fucking world. How do we?
They weren't open to it. Perry showed up with a bunch of. We showed up with a bunch of gunships and being like, trade with us or we will kill you.
They didn't teach me that.
Yeah. That's what caused the Meiji Restoration.
That it was like friendlier or whatever. Like it was more like, hey, by the way, we got some shit. You want some shit?
Yeah. No. There was some like influence from Dutch and Portuguese traders. Like the practice of tempura comes from like the Portuguese act of frying stuff. Yeah, like frying stuff. That came from Portugal. I'm getting really off track here. Sorry.
My bad. I'm getting you off track. I know I am.
Emperor, shogun, so top dog samurai, daimyo. So these are the like powerful landowners. They're samurai themselves, but they're like under the shogun. So that samurai are under daimyo. So kind of like daimyo are kind of like the middle managers of samurai.
Okay.
All right.
Now, is the emperor, when he becomes the emperor, is it just like based off of like lineage, like everything else, or is he like the best, or was regarded as the best samurai or whatever? Is that what's going on, or? Because Shogun's an emperor. I'm sorry, is a samurai, right?
Yeah, the shogun is a samurai, and after the Sengoku period, it is Tokugawa shogun. That's the guy's name. Tokugawa Ieyasu is the guy who takes over Japan to end the Sengoku period. His descendants stay on it until the Meiji Restoration.
Oh,
so for like 300-ish years, it's Tokugawa rule.
Okay, so it is like lineage then after that.
Yeah, so both the emperor and the shogun are lineage.
Dude, never understood. Like, maybe a couple hundred years ago, I would have, I guess, been as blind as everybody else. But so maybe this is hindsight saying it. But like, lineage doesn't even make sense as like because like you want like a badass or whatever to lead you, you know, who like when you know the who is it? The Mongols show up and start fucking you up, or the Attila the Hun.
Yeah.
You know somebody who's like knows how to fucking fight, not some dude, not some kid who was born into royalty and wealth his entire life. You know, like it doesn't make
Mhm.
sense to me. Like,
Nepo baby? Is that what you're getting at?
what is it?
Nepo baby?
Nepo babies. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes be a king. Like, I like obviously the like the democracy and the American in me where presidents makes the most sense, but like only to the extent that we're not voting in 80-year-old dudes. Like,
Mhm.
but but yeah, that never made fucking sense. I don't know why more people didn't question that over the course of human history.
Mhm.
You know that like not even like most of these people. I don't know what was going on in Japan. But like Europe, most of the people were like inbred, you know, like they
I'm
couldn't fight anyway. Like,
there is some amount of, I think inbreeding just goes on until like the 20th century, like all over the world. I'm
I don't
completely
doubt it.
guessing this, by
I
the way.
don't fucking doubt it. It seems to
Yeah.
be a normal thing in
Mhm.
human history. Fucking weird. Which I guess
So
we didn't have science as much, you know, so to tell you, hey, don't do that. Yeah.
hey, when I screwed my cousin Dottie, our kid came out with 12 toes. Maybe I shouldn't do that
Extra
again.
balance.
Hmm?
That's extra balance.
The kid was drawn by AI. All right, so Shogun, daimyo, samurai. Ronin are samurai without a daimyo. So it's the equivalent of like if a person is unemployed, right? So you're not tied to anyone. You kind of just wander. Um, they they usually were closer to outright mercenaries. This is where you get the trope. Oh no, what is the rising sun doing here? We're talking about samurai weapons, Zaru. So
This is the samurai early days of the Rising
yeah,
Sun. It's not the World War II version.
yeah, and also yeah, this would be long before it actually being there, but it's a nice background, right? So yeah, Ronin would kind of wander and would do odd jobs or more likely get hired to kill people. Um,
So mercenaries.
was daimyo and actual samurai. There was this like administrative aspect to it. You ruled lands. It was like feudal lords,
Okay.
just with swords. Wait, that was with feudal lords too, with folded steel swords. Haha.
So wait,
So
how did they get? You said there was a lack of iron, like not necessarily a
of
lack, but like
like good ore, so they couldn't really get the kind of quality of steel that you had in Europe.
right. So so it's
Uh,
just is what you're saying?
Atlas, don't you have papers to grade and essays to read? I do, and I'm procrastinating doing this show. So you're welcome, Zaru. Um, but yeah, so under the Ronin, you have peasants, so people who work the land, produce food. Uh, they got shat on just like peasants anywhere else in the world. Uh, that's not really new to you, I'm assuming. Um,
So
so under the peasants, you have artisans, so people who make textiles, pottery, metalwork. Um, and then lastly, you had the merchants, so people who sell stuff. This is again part of the reason why they didn't do a lot of trading. The idea of like, oh, we got everything we need right here. Why would I need to trade
yeah,
with
that makes
other
sense.
people?
Like you can fish. There's no like um lack of fish. There's you have I guess what like plentiful amount of like cropland and stuff like that. So farmland. You know, so like, what what did you need? You don't have, and you're kind of secluded. I know you have like boat situations, but like you're kind of secluded. So like you don't have to worry about enemies. So if it's all one, if everybody's on the same like page of like who the leader is, and I guess you're kind of solid.
Yeah, for about 200 years there, you had a large period of peace where samurai, being that they're good at war, didn't really have to go to war as much.
It was
Near
like
the end,
the Jedi in Phantom Menace. Got it.
yeah, kind of. So near the end of the Sengoku period, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, so that's like the guy before Ieyasu, Tokugawa Ieyasu, tries to, after consolidating Japan into one thing, after figuring out the Sengoku, decides to, let's go try and conquer Korea. It doesn't go very well. They get their asses handed to them.
That's a bit of a ways, huh? They
What?
go around a lot of land to go take over Korea, huh?
Well, it's across the ocean. They gotta sail over there.
Right, but it's like you're almost like it would just be easier to just try and take China or something, huh?
Well, I
Or
mean, again, you would have to cross the ocean.
right. But I feel like it would be a lot longer to get to Korea.
I think because Korea was seen as weaker, it didn't have the like China was a big deal for so long, and Korea was seen as like the easier target.
China's been around since the beginning of as far back as history goes, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
you know, they invented gunpowder, so kind of a big deal.
Don't fuck with they have the power of the sun in their hand.
Yeah. So part of the reason that Japan failed so badly in Korea was that they had mostly, you know, they have really good cavalry, they have really good infantry, but they don't really have a navy, because why would you?
Oh, you're telling me the biggest island not named Australia in the world, if you count Australia, or maybe New Zealand, I don't know. It was a big ass island, and they don't have a navy, and not only that, but like they thought they were gonna just take boats over to
Korea,
not know how to fight on a boat. What the fuck?
Well, because what their way of fighting on the sea was boarding parties. They would try and like jump on the other guy's ship and, you know, kill him.
Yeah.
If we cover the Punic Wars, this will also come up. But,
you're telling me Jack Sparrow would have single-handedly defeated the Japanese Empire?
Maybe, we'll see. But that's an Age of Empires game I want to see.
Right? Yeah, or a sequel.
Yeah. So versus Korea, which had to deal with mostly naval enemies like China, invested in naval warfare. So that's why they were so good at like giving Korea the slap. So, or giving Japan the slap. So Japan goes back and is just like, I'm not going anywhere. Twice the Mongols tried to invade and failed because storms completely wrecked their fleet. This was referred to by the Japanese as the divine wind or the kamikaze.
So is that just luck, or is it just particularly
luck? It's luck.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Mongols have the biggest empire ever.
Right, I did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if Japan just has fucked up ass storms a lot or what.
They just, it's a somewhat tropical climate, so you get like weird storms, and they're on a fault line, so earthquakes and stuff like that happen a lot.
That makes sense. They have tsunamis often, huh?
I don't know about tsunamis, but
well, what was that happened in like 2010, 2011, where they had that nuclear power plant bust because of, was it a tsunami or was it an earthquake?
2010 nuclear disaster.
2010, 2011, maybe 2009. I don't think so though.
Oh, Fukushima.
Yeah, I think so.
Fukushima was 2011. You're right. Second worst nuclear accident after Chernobyl.
And was it an earthquake or a tsunami? I mean, I guess if it's an earthquake, it's probably going to be a tsunami, huh? I mean, Zaragoza says, I mean, tsunami is Japanese, so I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a Japanese word.
That makes sense.
It does make sense.
So it's Fukushima. Yeah, it was an earthquake.
Okay.
So I completely forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Stick with me forever. And it's just random information that I don't even really understand most of the time.
So aside from the katana, there were other smaller swords that samurais would make use of. Pull up the things again.
I got you. We're gonna. Oh my! Where'd they go? Where did they go? There they are.
Okay, not that one. Other one. So no, the one back. Yeah. So the wakizashi is kind of looks just like a smaller katana. And this was mostly used in either closer quarters combat if your katana was lost as a samurai, or if you were to commit seppuku, which I'm sure you know what that is.
No, I don't know what that is.
Ritual suicide. So there was a cult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, that was a big thing.
So there was a large culture in Japan of if you are instead of capture, it is better to go out fighting. So it is better to kill yourself.
Similar to like culture.
Yeah.
Where you go to Valhalla or whatever.
Mm-hmm. This was also used later, like after the samurai stopped being a thing. The idea of
kamikaze.
Divine wind, dying honorably through battle, would often like namesake the samurai. Like you guys are samurai by getting in these planes and ramming into ships attacking.
That makes sense.
Our territory.
I wondered if there was a connection to kamikaze and the I guess suicide culture of samurais.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you also had a lot of use of, strangely, the arquebus, which is like a 16th century rifle, which was they got from the Portuguese.
Okay.
So
okay, you said the Portuguese and Turkey were the only two countries they.
No, Portugal and the Dutch were the only two that they traded with until,
and because they're kind of far too. You think that so they just don't fuck with Asia? Why these Western countries?
In Portugal's case, you had people like Magellan who were circumnavigating the world at that time.
Okay.
So they would have landed on Japan at some point. I think in regards to why they were like, okay, we'll trade with you instead of get the fuck out of here, was they were mostly, I think, amiable enough.
Well, Magellan was supposedly like decked out, right? Like he looked good. Like he was like, pimped out. So like he was
last minute history lore. Does that mean you had a samurai and Magellan boning each other? Because I need to see that fan art. That.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying though. Like, so when he showed up on his little boat or whatever, they're like, "This motherfucker looks fly as hell." Like, what you got? What you got? Like, and the Japanese, they're a bit materialistic. Like they like stuff. They like accessories. They like the flamboyant hair. So
I think by that point, if you're the Portuguese and you're getting there, and I'm not necessarily saying this was exactly Magellan's voyage, but they were making a lot of voyages around that area to get to China to go get and bring the silk back. They would go around Africa and go the way up. So it's logical they would end up in Japan a lot.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the Dutch?
The Dutch.
That's North Europe, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, like northwestern Europe. They were just money hungry assholes, so they went everywhere. The Dutch East India Company, but I don't really know what the exact reason is. It says here that the Portuguese landed at the first time by accident.
Well, that's the thing.
So maybe they were like, "Please, for the love of God, help us. We will."
Y'all got any fruit or something? I got scurvy on the real.
We'll teach you how to fry things, please. Like, help us.
They're like, we got tempura. What do you mean fries?
So usually when you think of a samurai, you don't think of guns, right?
Not really, no.
You think swords, you think shuriken,
China, when I think of the Chinese, the old Chinese, I don't even think of guns. That's the funny. I think of it as more a colonial British time. Is the weird part.
yeah.
You know, the Chinese invented all that shit, fireworks, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So
fireworks are considered an American thing. That's the funny part. China also invented that. You know,
so by the latter part of the Sengoku period, the Portuguese were showing up with the gunpowder that they got from China.
yeah.
They would use for the arquebus, which was like a shittier rifle. So usually how you would have assassinations work is ninja, which again you could hire mercenaries,
Right.
would like show up in a tree, have two fully loaded arquebuses,
The stars.
not the stars,
Oh,
but and if you remember, you would have to like pack the gunpowder in. This isn't on the picture, the arquebus. Um, you would have to like pack the gunpowder in, aim and fire,
right.
do it again. So ninja were a little more flippant with it. They would just kind of show up in a tree, shoot the guy, and throw the second one away while they had the second one ready to go.
There you go.
It was like a different way of using a gun, and I think that's pretty cool. By the time you get to the Meiji period in the 1800s, guns were a lot better.
Right.
You had people like with Colt 6-shooters and stuff like that. And you had samurai on horses in their samurai armor with a gun and the katana, which is steampunk as hell.
This would be like a badass like B movie. I'm not even gonna lie. Like,
yeah,
we could get like Tom Hardy in or something. You know?
Oh hell yeah! Oh yeah, the guy who directed Bullet Train, get him to do this.
There we go. Bullet Train. Yeah, the whole cast back from Bullet Train. As a matter of fact.
So
steampunk samurai.
Japan was an early adopter of the arquebus as a weapon. So when people see ninja or samurai as kind of like it's an ancient art. No, fuck you. They were using guns. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, we got all these cowboys from the Western, and we got all these movies from West.
Yeah.
How the fuck do we have a Japanese samurai Western, I guess, if that's the case? If they had samurais on horses with guns, that's just a Western in Tokyo. Like that sounds dope as hell. Like, imagine putting the Duke or what's his name? Fuck. Old guy. He did Gran Torino. I can't remember his name right now.
Did who?
Gran Torino and Pale Rider and all that.
Oh, this is gonna kill me.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. That's the one. But imagine Clint Eastwood back in the day being like having to fight a samurai on a horse with a gun. You know? Like,
hang on.
Pale Rider in Tokyo. That sounds kind of dope. It's like a dope name.
Somebody in my friend group had this idea for a D&D campaign.
I'm interested. I play D&D. I'm a dungeon master. Did you know that?
All right. So Victorian England happens between 1837 and 1901. Foreshadowing for our next week's episode, by the way. The American Old West is from 1803 to 1912. The Meiji Restoration from 1868 to 1912. And the French privateering in the Gulf of Mexico ended around 1830. So you have a party of a Victorian gentleman thief, an Old West gunslinger, a disgraced former samurai, and an elderly French pirate.
Oh, yeah.
How cool would that be?
Holy fuck. Yeah, that should be a movie. Like, honestly, TV show.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. My wife just said she made 2 more of these sandwiches. Like, okay, I don't know how I can get across the point for people watching or listening to this that all I want to do is take another bite of my sandwich, but yet I keep talking about samurai weapons. I do this for you. All right. So yeah, samurais, early adopters of the gun, of the arquebus. Another thing that Japan was LOL, thank you, Atlas.
Do we have pictures of a gun on these pictures, or am I stupid?
I don't know. I didn't send anything to you. I was just taking notes.
Right. I was wondering if the pictures I got had any on them, but I don't see any.
You see a lot of spears in these pictures.
They had guns. I didn't know they had got. They had got. I didn't know because I thought part of the like when America came, we were like, hey, here's a gun. You know, I
No,
didn't know.
no,
So,
that was around in like the 1600s, the or 15 to 1600s. In fact, how you dealt with cavalry in that era of history in the 15 to 1600s is you would have your guys form a square and then be firing on the horses while they're like trying to kill you, because the square was like a weird shape to try and charge at. You can't really get a good angle from a horse, right? So
interesting.
how now in Japan, how they dealt with cavalry was a little different. Cavalry was a really big deal, particularly in the Takeda clan, which was a big player in the Sengoku Jidai, Looney Tunes cartoon fight dust cloud that was going on for 100 years. And their big, claim to fame was their cavalry. So what the Oda and the Toyotomi did. So Oda Nobunaga was the other guy who helped unite Japan. So Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Tokugawa Ieyasu. Those were the
Remember
three.
any of his name.
Okay. But so how they would do it was, instead of doing the square like we were seeing in Europe, they would throw up like a loose bamboo fence, so like a couple feet wide, couple feet tall, and do a bunch of them. So when the cavalry would come down, they would get like, we can't go over the fence, we can't go through the fence, you got to go around the fence, and then you're kind of running into each other, and you get like a horse traffic jam. And that's where the Yari comes in, and I think that's in one of the pictures. So the Yari was this big, long infantry spear with a curved top.
Not the longbow, is it?
No. Yeah. Wait. I think I saw it. Yeah. So the Kamiyari and the Suyari, near about 3/4 of the way up, were these big, long spears. So, like we talked about in the Bronze Age collapse, it's a lot easier to train a peasant to hold a big, long stick than it is to train a swordsman or train an archer. And then I think it's in the third picture too, the black and white one. Nope, never mind. Just the middle one. Leave that one then.
I was just excited to have pictures for once for the show.
Yeah, and then for people listening, they don't care. So,
right.
But so the Yari was like a big long spear. You give it to a bunch of peasants, and they go, okay, so you see this thing you're holding? Put it in that guy's chest. Seems pretty good.
Fucking American human history is just violence.
Yeah,
just violence. Like nobody was ever like. Well, they probably were. There's probably guys that are like, can we not do this? And that dude probably got murdered. Jesus.
Yeah.
MLK. Like it's just from Jesus to MLK. It's just like
Jesus, MLK, Robert Kennedy, Gandhi. Yeah.
Gandhi. Yeah, you're right. John Lennon, which was an isolated incident, but
yeah. I mean, we brought it up in the Mesopotamia episode, but the three things every human civilization figures out: how to fry things, how to make swords, and how to drink. Always.
Sake. That's a big thing in Japan.
Yep.
Huh? Okay.
Sake. So after the Sengoku period, you had about 200 years of relative peace. You didn't really have anybody coming to get them. Nobody came to Japan and was like, hey, you got to open up the country to us.
Now, was this before or after the Mongols got fucked up by the storms?
After.
Okay. So, okay, so that's something I want to bring up. Are you telling me that Japan just has a long history of sucking at war? Like, because they got fucked up against Korea. They really only got lucky against the Mongols, and then they tried to, they like horribly assumed that, oh, we fucked up that little island in the Pacific. That's America, right? And then
they're really
bombs any human could drop on somebody. Like they make mistakes, bro. War is not their.
Here's the thing.
They're defense. It sounds like. It's
they're
not.
really good at war against themselves. The fact that they managed to do the Sengoku Jidai for 100 years without completely collapsing, the country somehow managed to, you know, remain relatively stable. I think if there was an outside force coming to
like
what?
they were just successfully they were successful at oppression essentially of their own people. Is what you're telling me?
Not or just like we want to go conquer the capital. Oh, but as soon as I leave my province, this other clan comes to get me. The reason that the Oda helped win the Sengoku Jidai was they were like, turned to their neighbor and were like, "Please form an alliance with me."
Okay.
That's kind of what ended it. Was the
Fascism.
what?
So fascism.
No, the thing that helped end the Sengoku Jidai was uh, a samurai clan having the wherewithal, and especially this is against samurai honor, to admit any weakness, to turn to their neighbors and be like, "Please help. I need your help."
So
And that's
they kind of swallowed their pride. Is what you're saying?
yes, exactly. That's what helped unify the country. Because otherwise, if you tried to leave your province, someone would come in. You have to go back to defend your province,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth
Yeah.
for 100 years. So between that and the 1800s, you have like 200-ish years of relative peace. Everything's going pretty well. You had like not freedom of the press, but it was generally okay-ish. You know, you had things like I don't want to like look white while trying to explain Japanese culture. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to like.
In a dimly lit room.
I'm trying not to shoot myself in the foot here. Just go watch Extra History's End of the Samurai, and they're better at this than we are.
Go watch
So,
Toast to Putin.
so 1853, Matthew Perry, against orders from the U.S. By the way, he just kind of did this because he's a dick. Went to Japan with all his gunships and was like, "Open the fucking country, or we will bomb you." And Japan didn't really have an answer for this. They knew they were cooked.
Right.
So they opened the country. And that's what led to this samurai warrior class, this class that ruled the country both in name and in practice for hundreds of years, having modern technology and people from other countries coming in and having to deal with foreigners for the first time in hundreds of years on a like large scale.
This was Americans, right?
Yeah, American. Well, you had British.
Well, started it though. Everybody for sure because they became like a trade ally for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Were they involved in World War One?
Japan? Yeah, they were. So they were frustrated with that, and that's what leads to the Satsuma Rebellion, which is finally the last part of the samurai, like as a class, as a warrior class, as a ruling class. And the reason for that was Emperor Meiji, and that was a name he took when he decided to do this, was saw Perry and the Gunships, which, by the way, awesome band name, right? Perry and the Gunships.
Perry and the Gunships. It definitely sounds like kind of more like a metal like bluegrass type of like
experience.
Oh yeah. Like we're heavy, but we're still a little country.
Yeah, definitely. So they recognized that they were cooked. So they asked for help from European countries. So you had advisors from France, from the UK, from the Dutch, from Portugal, from Spain, from like areas all over Europe, just to like reform the army. And the army is what took down the samurai. So before, samurai were the army, and now it was a professionally trained army that took down the samurai.
Right.
And how they did that was with artillery.
Well, yeah.
Because they had guns before, but they didn't have fucking big guns.
Yep.
Cannon.
Right?
The last of the samurai were seen, weirdly enough, on my birthday, February 19th. It's 1871, I think.
Samurai aren't even a thing as like just as a trying to think of the word like a formality anymore.
What do you mean as a formality?
Kind of like how the English still have knights.
Kind of not. Yeah, like obviously you still have art depicting samurai. It's not like they tried to pretend they didn't exist, but you don't have them
But it's not.
as
It's like a camaraderie. Like, oh, you're a samurai, and you're just a guy in the military, really, or whatever.
yeah, you just worked for the military because they knew they had to like Japan knew it had to modernize and fast because they saw Perry and the gunships and were like, we have to do something. We can't just be colonized, like because they were seeing what was happening to China, and to Korea and the Philippines, where they were being colonized by Western powers. So Japan, by trying to prevent becoming,
Holy shit!
yeah,
I realized Americans were colonizers. I just put that together right now.
yeah,
Just thought of it. Like I'm sitting there thinking Hawaii, Alaska, the Philippines, Guam,
mm-hmm.
all the Caribbean,
Puerto Rico,
holy shit, Puerto Rico. Yeah, I
the
didn't realize
Dominican Republic, yeah,
what the English
Cuba.
did. What we got pissed off at the English for. I didn't realize that. That's not taught schools. This is not how we
if
need.
we
We need to reteach history, Atlas.
if we ever have my old professor Michael Hawkins on this show, he knows a lot more about the whole American Empire thing than I do. So
yeah, we should definitely have him on this. Have his own like episode and talk about whatever he wants. That'd be cool.
Sorry, 1877 is is when like the big decisive battle of the Satsuma Rebellion happens.
Okay.
It officially ends that following September. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But with Japan modernizing, you move away from samurai, from like, this big guy on a horse with the sword to, or the guy on the horse with the sword and the Colt revolver, to learning how to fire your riflemen in the lines. Not the arquebus. This is a couple hundred years later, so rifles are better. You don't have to do like tamping the stick in. You can just right. So learning riflemen to fire in lines. You have artillery supporting. You have you still have spearmen, but a little less so. And you also start working toward like an actual navy, which leads to the Russo-Japanese War. What do you know about the Russo-Japanese War, my good friend?
Heard of it.
So in 1905, Japan is controlling territory on, where is it? Where's Port Arthur? Manchuria. Sorry. Manchuria is a territory usually colonized by Russia on and off throughout history. And one of the things Russia loves to have is a port on a warm ocean. So be it the Black Sea with Crimea, which the Crimean War was kind of about, was part of it. Ukraine, like we're seeing now, even they still are trying to get Ukraine because the Ukraine is on the Black Sea. Not the Ukraine. Ukraine is on the Black Sea.
That's what I was thinking about. I was like, well, they're not on a warm port now, but that makes sense.
Yeah. And then Port Arthur is off of Manchuria. And the Battle of Port Arthur was the start of the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905. It is the only war in history where a non-European force defeated a European force, like in modern history. So it began with a surprise night attack by a squadron of Japanese destroyers on a neutral Russian fleet anchored at Port Arthur, Manchuria. So if you want to learn more about the whole Russo-Japanese War, I recommend checking out the Lions Led by Donkeys podcast. They did a good episode on it.
Now, do you know you guys personally, or is that just a podcast you listen to?
That's a podcast that I listen to.
Gosh, I was going to say we should invite them to come on at some point.
They're much better than us at this.
Probably.
Yeah, at the beginning of the war, a lot of the propaganda was, "Oh, these guys are Asian. We can take their asses down immediately." But the Meiji Restoration had been going on for almost 40 years at this point. They had been working on their army for about 40 years, and it was time to take your deck to locals
Fucking
and see if you could top, right?
Alexander the Great couldn't take China. Like they decided to do the Silk Road instead. Like, why do people think Asians are like anybody to tribal with? You know?
In the 19th century, China like kind of got its ass kicked by a lot.
But Japan specifically during like the World War II era. But like, I mean, they're still here. You know?
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. You know, granted, it's probably a little bit because of us, but as Americans. But I don't know, any culture that can last that long, you got to watch out for. You know.
Mm-hmm. But it was a complete shit show. You had things like Russia trying to sail its Baltic fleet. So the Baltic Sea is way up at the top part of Russia, like up near the Arctic, right? They sailed their fleet all the way around the world. So they went all the way down the coast of Europe, all the way down Africa, all the way around to go fight the Japanese, and still lost.
Well, so far as fuck, dude. Like, you run out of resources and shit.
Yeah. I again refer to the Lions Led by Donkeys.
Imagine going up there where it's cold. That probably pissed your crew off.
I bet it did. They were just like, "Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet? No. Can I get a tattoo? Yes. Are we there yet? No."
I've been okay. So I'm the oldest of 6 kids, right?
Yeah.
And one of my mom's favorite things to do was to just drive to New Orleans from Houston. That's an 8-hour drive.
Wow.
I'll lose the locker room. Okay. Now I can only imagine what those guys are going through. You know what I mean? Going across the entire fucking world, seeing all kinds of different weather, not really even getting off their ship. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't even have anything to say.
Just so dumb. Last minute history, but it's just family history.
Right.
Dude.
They're like, do my Cole Clayton thing, but like, I'm just saying, I'm relating it to what I know. You know, you stick to what you know, I guess, right?
Yeah. So again,
no, isn't it crazy though? Like, the more we do this show, I've noticed that like all the pieces are like, you obviously know way more about history than I do, but like it seems like World War II was kind of inevitable. Like, even as far back as like the Mesopotamian days, it was all leading to World War II. It just seemed that way.
That's definitely a way to look at things. Like the whole thing, like history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. That shit, right?
Right.
Yeah, like there are things where just human nature leads to eventually the tragedies that we make for ourselves. And I guess if there's one thing to be learned from being Japan, and again, if you want to learn more about Japan, please check out Extra History's End of the Samurai, Sengoku Jidai, or Japanese Militarism series. I'll have those linked below. Lions Led by Donkeys, Russo-Japanese War episode. Also, we'll have that link below. All good stuff to learn more about this because they are better at this than I am. So
we'll get there.
Yeah. If you want to suggest a topic for an episode, please leave it down in the comments below. Next week,
we're not doing just time periods or events anymore. We're doing like
whatever, anywhere,
evolutions of specific stuff, even like just everything.
We're going full Shakira, right? Whenever, wherever, yeah. So, like, yeah, suggestions down below. Wherever it is you happen to see this, we're in contact with each other, right? Because you can see this on Generation Dan and your channel and my channel, I think.
Yeah, and we're on my Twitter right now and my Facebook as well.
Okay, right on. So yeah, that's all well and good. Next week we will, or not next week, in 2 weeks, next episode, we will be talking about the shoplifting gangs in Victorian London. Yeah.
Like Jack the Ripper shit.
No, not the serial killing. I mean, going into stores and like putting as much as you can into your waistcoat and bouncing. Yeah. So, thanks everybody for listening. You can follow me at Atlas Novak in all the places. I'm also, if you're listening to this on Generation Dan's thing, you already know what that is. But if not, at Generation Dan is my podcast with Dino the Genetic Marvel. Cole often shows up on that as a guest. My other podcast besides that is Nexus at Night, which is about a trading card game called Vanguard. If you're not into that, that's all well and good. How about you, sir?
Yeah, you can catch me actually tomorrow night. I'm going to do Hammer to Cheese with our buddy Dino, the Genetic Marvel. We are going to do a taco parfait.
Banh mi. Do banh mi next time.
We said what?
Do banh mi after the taco party.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. As a matter of fact, maybe you can come on sometime soon and show me how to make the sandwich because I really love Thai food actually. So.
Oh, good.
And then Wednesday night I'm doing Sketched Out with Kyle Petrilla and Nina Dicker. And
shit! That's gonna be awesome. I love Nina.
I'm excited because Nina's always a good time. And then this Saturday I have 2 shows coming up. I'm doing the Greatest Goddamn Show on Air with my sister, and then every other weekend is finally making its return after 3 weeks off with my kiddo Jack.
Nice.
As far as that, you can see us in 2 weeks to do our shoplifting games in the UK. Appreciate it, and bye.
Bye.